Good morning. This is Pastor Ernie Lewis of the Blue Point Church in Sisney, Illinois, with your thoughts for Tuesday. All this week, we are looking at places in the Bible where God has rescued his people. You know, God is in the business of rescuing and delivering and saving man. In Exodus chapter 17, there is a story where we find Israel, who is God's chosen people. They're traveling to the promised land and they're attacked by the Amalekites. So Moses tells Joshua to gather some men to fight. Actually, in Exodus 17:9, Moses says to Joshua, choose out some men and go out, fight with Amalek. Tomorrow I will stand on the top of the hill with the rod of God in mine hand. And it came to pass that when Moses held up his hand, that Israel prevailed. And when he let down his hand, Amalek prevailed. This was a battle with a historic enemy in the middle of the wilderness. Israel had never really amassed an army. They had not gathered together fighting men or trained them while they were living in Egypt. But now Moses says, we'll give this over to the Lord. His plan is to stand on the hill and raise the rod of God over the battlefield. So whenever Moses held up his hand, Israel prevailed. But whenever Moses let down his hand, Amalek prevailed. So what does this story tell us today? Well, first of all, the rod of God had been used whenever they held it over the Red Sea and parted the waters to deliver Israel from the armies of Pharaoh. But this was not a magical stick. It did not just perform miracles on its own. When Moses stood on the hill and raised the rod of God toward heaven, he was stating very clearly to all the people here, not only Israel and these fighting men, but also to Amalek, this enemy who did not serve God. He was stating, we believe in the God of heaven, and we believe that he will rescue his people against all enemies. And then God wanted them to know this very clearly. So whenever Moses' hand got tired and the rod was lowered, Amalek would prevail. This points out clearly to me the importance of a very vibrant relationship with the Lord and a very vibrant faith in him. We don't say, I believed in God as a child somewhere back there and then neglect that faith as an adult. We don't say that we trust him, but we actually place ourselves in man or perhaps even in ourselves in times of trouble. We are called upon to raise the rod of God and say, I trust in you, Lord. Proverbs 3:5-6 says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not to your own understanding, but in all your ways acknowledge him and he will direct your path. By the way, there is an addendum to this story in Exodus 17. The Bible tells us that whenever Moses grew weary, that Aaron and Hur came alongside him and held up his hands. Oh, how desperately we need to hold up the hands of our leaders today. We need to pray for our pastor. If there's anything that you can do to help him, step in and volunteer. Say, Pastor, I'm there for you. Or our nation's leaders today, we certainly need to pray for them, that they would seek God and certainly seek his leadership in leading our nation. God wants to rescue and care for his people in all circumstances. But we need to realize our help comes from the Lord who made heaven and earth. That's what David said. Hopefully we say that today also.